Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Clayton Welch, and I am on staff here at the Passage Church. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Passage P3D podcast. I'm here today with Pastor Matt for our initial episode of this podcast, so thanks for joining us. Hey, Matt, tell us what the P3D podcast is.
All right, the P3D podcast, well, it all goes back to really our vision. Our vision is to be followers of Jesus who make followers of Jesus where we live and where he leads. And so the strategy by which we accomplish the vision is we want to see people doing three things, or have done three things. Number one, we want to see them discover and respond to Jesus first, number one. Number two, we want to see them develop in the relationship with Jesus. And number three, demonstrate his love to a lost world. And so we believe if people are doing those three things, then if they have responded, if they have discovered who Jesus is, said yes to him, developed a relationship with him, demonstrate his love, then by default, hey, they're going to accomplish the vision.
Yeah, so the format of this podcast is going to be about 20 minutes long. And the thought process is just, a lot of people listen to podcasts on their way to work. So this is going to be available on lots of different podcast avenues, right? So Spotify, Apple, Google Play, all the things that people would listen to podcasts from. So it'll be about 20 minutes long, and it won't just be me and you talking all the time. We're going to have some guests come in and talk about different areas. I think we've already discussed a few guests coming in, talk about family discipleship, talking about serving the community, different places like that. So, but today is just kind of the intro thing. So, yeah, we're just going to get started, hang out for a little bit, and thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. We want to focus on a couple of different areas. And so if I am a follower of Jesus and, I want to make followers of Jesus, number one, how do I help somebody discover and respond to Jesus? How do I share the gospel? That's going to be that part of that piece. The second piece is, once they have become a believer, or maybe I'm a new believer, and I want to know what does it look like to develop in my relationship with Jesus. We say this around here in regards to develop. If I go to out to eat this evening with my wife, and the people in the table across from us, they've got a 1-year-old, and they get this 1-year-old out, and they get the bottle out, and they feed the 1-year-old, and they feed the 1-year-old the bottle. We're gonna look and we're gonna wave. We're gonna think that's really cute and great and awesome. If they get the same restaurant, that same couple, but instead of a 1-year-old, they have a 15-year-old, and when the food comes, instead of eating the food, they get a bottle out. Something is not cute. Something is tragic in that moment.
Right.
And one of the things that we believe is that we want to teach people how to develop in their relationship with Jesus so that after somebody's been following Jesus for 15 years, they're not where they were when year one of following Jesus. And then the last piece is how do I demonstrate that? How do I live a missional life where God's placed me? How do I demonstrate the love of Jesus? And to whom do I demonstrate the love of Jesus? What's that look like for me? And so those three things are really pivotal into the church, into the life of the church, into the life of the believer. And so we think it's worth creating a podcast about and creating resources and giving resources so that people can grow in those three areas.
Yeah, we get questions a lot about, hey, what are some resources that I can use for family discipleship, devotions, or we actually get a lot of questions like, hey, I really want to get connected. I want to start growing in my relationship with the Lord. Can you connect me with somebody? And a lot of times we push people to missional communities and explain a little bit what a missional community is.
Sure. A missional community is one of what we would call on-ramps or avenues of disciple making within the Passage Church. A missional community is a group of families, people, individuals, usually from about 7 to about 15 people, and sometimes maybe slightly larger than that. But the idea is that they would grow in their relationship with God. That's kind of the up rhythm of a missional community. That they would grow in relationship with one another, and that's kind of the in rhythm of a missional community. And that they would also decide on a mission that they can be a part of together, and they can live on mission together to try to accomplish this mission as a group in something they could not accomplish on their own. And that's kind of the out rhythm of missional communities.
Yeah, so for example, my missional community, I'm in the Montgomery's missional community, and our mission is Everyday Grace Foster Care. Now, we have the Browns in our group, and they are a foster family, and they kind of kicked off Everyday Grace, but the group as a whole helps out with Everyday Grace. So the foster closet, helping organize the website, I mean, they've really taken off and done a lot with it. So the way it works for us is we'll meet together as a group one week, and then the next week the girls will meet for dinner, and then they'll do some type of something with the mission. They'll come up here and maybe work on the foster closet stuff. Then the next week we meet as a group, and then the week after that the guys meet and for dinner, and then we'll also go and work on the mission. And then just throughout the week, we check on each other. I know that some members of the group they take each other's kids to different places, babysit for them while they have appointments and stuff like that. So they're really living on mission, and so you get to see that played out with the missional community.
I think one of the things in missional community that you get is when you focus on a mission together, you're going to get community. Because being connected to and caring about a mission together, community is going to be a natural outpouring of that. But if we start with community and we just focus on community, we rarely get mission. And so by always coming around a mission, we're hoping that the community, the end piece, happens because we're caring about and living on mission together. Just like you have seen and been a part of in any type of missional engagement that you've done with a group of people. You grow closer together. Maybe that's a mission trip, maybe that's a serve project that you've done, but you connect with those people you're serving with.
Yeah. So we have missional communities, and then this year we actually launched DNA groups. So that's another on-ramp for people to get involved in the church, to start being discipled by somebody, or to start discipling somebody, because that's what we do, right? We are followers of Jesus who make followers of Jesus where we are and where we live. That's our church vision. So DNA groups are kind of another on-ramp. Can you explain DNA groups a little bit? So they're kind of new, so maybe they're still new for everybody.
So DNA groups are a place, groups 3, 4, 5 folks gather together, men with men, ladies with ladies, and they a couple things. Number one, they're going to be in the Word together. They're going to discover the Word. They're going to read it. They're going to kind of ask some questions about who God is and how do we live in light of what we've read. And then there's going to be a nurture piece. And really, this is kind of an accountability piece of helping one another follow Jesus. It's really hard. There's all these one another's in Scripture, and it's really hard to do those one another's if you just come on Sunday mornings. To love one another, encourage one another, forgive one another. All these one another's spur one another on to love and good deeds. It's hard to do if we come and just sit and leave. It's hard to carry out those one another. So we want to nurture one another in the relationship with Jesus. And then the last thing, we want to call people to action. So based on what we've read and based on our conversation, what's the Holy Spirit leading you to do next? Like, what's your next step? Because we've met today and because we've read the Bible, like, now what are you going to do with that? Question number one, who are you going to tell about it? Question number two. And so we're trying to lead people into a couple of things. Number one, we want them to be aware that as followers of Jesus, the Holy Spirit is in them, empowering them to live a life for Jesus. But number two, we want to get them to see that they are on mission once they leave that, to go to a group of people, and that they are there by God's design, to live among those people and to be a missionary wherever that may be.
Yeah, that's a good point about the Sunday morning thing, especially, since we had all of our first of all, we didn't meet for a while. We were only online. And then we came back, and it's kind of like, hey, come in and we'll worship together, and then, don't hang around because we can't have people lingering in the building. So some of those relationships kind of got lost, and like there's some personal responsibility that I feel like may have been put by the wayside a little bit. Like, some people come to church on Sunday mornings and then they go home and they think like, well, how come I don't have community at this church, or I'm not connecting with anybody? Well, I mean, there's different ways you can try and connect, and that's the personal responsibility, right? So like, are you serving? Are you seeking somebody out? Are you meeting somebody new on Sunday mornings? Are you actively trying to build those relationships? And that's one thing I think that our church puts tries to put emphasis on is that personal responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about it in a different variety of different ways when we meet. The personal responsibility of a lot of times people will say, hey, we'll sit and we'll wait for somebody to come to us. We'll wait for somebody to initiate with us. When we have avenues and ways, people can seek those things out. And so, hey, be responsible to do that. And then we also talk about personal responsibility in the context of you are responsible by God for the people that God's placed in your life. So you're personally responsible for your neighbors, for your coworkers, for your friends, and their relationship with Jesus. So personal responsibility is a huge thing and a big piece of our church. And really, I think it's a big part of our culture that we want people to assume responsibility. And so we just apply it in a few different areas here.
Nice. Well, speaking of personal responsibility and personal things, been reading some good books lately? What's been going on?
Well, yeah. Well, so part of this podcast, what we want to do is we want to give some recommendations. So if we're going to only do this podcast once every other week, then we want to kind of give you some things that you can be devouring. I don't know. Are you a book reader? Do you enjoy reading books?
I do enjoy reading books. I don't always. It's kind of like working out sometimes. Like I really enjoy doing it, but I don't always make time for it. Right?
Yeah. Perfect analogy. And I think reading is one of those things that like I complained about doing growing up, but I wish I would have done more of.
Yeah.
Because there's so much just quality content that's available in the folks that are writing and that's being pushed out there all the time. And so, yes. So if you call Pastor's Church home, or if you're just tuning in to learn more about disciple making, you're going, hey, where do I start? What's going to get me part of the conversation? I think the Gospel Fluency book by Jeff Vanderstelt is a great place to start on that.
I told somebody this week, they asked for resources, and I told them that I'd probably say like 85% of what our church does as far as like trying to reach people and discipleship making comes from that book right now. So
it at least comes from the what Vanderstelt's doing, and in his ministry that's there, and DNA and all that kind of stuff is kind of all originating out of what not originate from, but they've made some really good strong.
Yeah, they've got a good model going on.
Yeah, and so it's a really good thing because it's basically helping us take the mindset of how does the gospel influence your parenting? How does the gospel influence your work relationships? How does the gospel influence your the way you interact with your neighbors? Like, how does the gospel influence when you get passed over for a promotion at work? So
what I like about it, it's not that it's just gospel fluency. So it's not using the gospel as a tool to get through those things. Like, it is that you're becoming fluent. It's you view everything through the lens of the gospel. So like he gives the analogy, when you go to a foreign country, you could just learn enough to get by. And just kind of, be around there, but you're not gonna really fit in. You're not gonna thrive if you're in another culture and you just know how to say, where's the bathroom, right? So if you get thrown into that culture and it's everything you do, you quickly assimilate, I guess is the word, or you quickly kind of view everything through that lens and you learn so much more and you're able to be thriving in that culture. So that when you get into the gospel like that and you view the gospel like that, like you're being fluent in the gospel, it's everything that you do. So I thought that's cool.
And it helps us in interactions. And so when we're talking with people and someone just kind of talks about just a broken part of life, maybe it's a broken relationship, maybe it's a strained something, and to help them see things through the eyes of the gospel, especially as we one another each other, as we talked about already. Gospel Fluency is a great tool for that. So it's just a really good book. I'm always reading stuff that Alan Hirsch is throwing out there. Just one quote that kind of summarizes what we're doing. It says this, if individual members are not committed to living their lives as kingdom-minded missionaries in their daily life stations, then the corporate efforts of the church as a whole will never sniff the air to their true kingdom potential. So the church is always going to hit the lid of what we can accomplish if the people that are part of that church are not seeking to live their life as missionaries, what he calls in life stations. Live, work, play, those types of things. And if we're not individually doing that where God's placed us, then the Passage Church will not sniff the air of what we could be. As long as people are not seeing themselves as missionaries.
Yeah.
So Alan Hirsch does a lot to develop that. But for today, let's just give you one quote, give you one book. That's it. Clayton, you're always sending me new music.
That I am.
So music-wise, we got a couple minutes left. What should people download? What should people be listening to on their commute when they're not listening to the podcast?
Yeah, so, man, I have been really digging two bands really lately. So can I say two?
Give me two.
Two. Okay. Well, so Red Rocks Worship. They just had a new EP come out, and it's called Things of Heaven, Where We Come From. And man, this morning I was jamming that at the gym. I was jamming it yesterday. It's an amazing album. It's got a couple upbeat songs on it, but really it's gonna bring you to worship. So Red Rocks Worship has kind of been my jam lately. And then my other jam is this band called The Eagle and Child. So they are, I think I told you wrong the other day. I thought they were from Seattle. They are not from Seattle. They're from San Diego. But they're not really worship music, right? So they're just kind of Christian music that you can listen to that's not K-Love. Not that there's anything wrong with K-Love. What are you laughing for? What in the world?
That's good.
Or his radio.
That's good.
Well, come on.
Red Rocks Worship's not going to be on K-Love?
No, Red Rocks Worship, they probably won't be.
Okay.
Elevation and stuff like that, they're on there, which is fine.
Yeah,
Elevation's new album is fun. But Red Rocks Worship. But The Eagle and Child. So check them out. The newest album is called Sight. And man, I've been jamming that one, trying to learn the songs.
What kind of genre are we talking about with Eagle and Child?
The Eagle and Child is kind of, I don't know. What kind of genre would you say John Mark McMillan is?
Okay, so
that's a very good comparison. So that they cover several of his songs when they play live, and they sound very similar.
Okay.
But man, they're right on. They're just cool. They're a little bit out there, but I would recommend them. But if you're not going for a little bit out there, start off with Red Rocks Worship.
Red Rocks Worship.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, I hope that the last few 20 minutes, 15 minutes, how long we've been on here, you have gotten an idea.
17 minutes and 43 seconds.
You've gotten an idea of where we're headed with the podcast, enough to that where you'll at least come back and give us one more shot.
Yeah.
And after that, give us one more shot.
The 4-week challenge. We should do the 4 podcast challenge.
That's right. Hey, we do a 4-week challenge for new people that come to church. So we tell them, hey, come for 4 weeks, learn people, kind of learn what it's all about.
Yep.
Same thing with podcasts.
Dude, this has been great. The only thing now, what we have to do, we recorded the podcast. Now we have to come up with a cool intro. Like the Passage P3D podcast.
Hey, that's on you.
Something like that.
Call
all right.
Eagle and Child and see if
the Eagle and Child. Do you know what the Eagle and Child is?
No.
It's like a tavern in England. It's where I say England. It's where like Tolkien and C.S. Lewis used to meet.
Oh,
and the Inklings, they would meet there and discuss stuff. So that's the place.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so anyways. All right, well, thanks so much for listening to the Passage P3D podcast, our first episode. And stay tuned, and we look forward to talking with you next time. And you guys have a good day.
That's it.